Oh my. I hit my desk. It's a shaken. All right. Hello. Welcome to the art stream as I struggle to get my ink open. I am going to be inking one of my comic pages. This is from my webcomic, Age of Night. And it is chapter 24, page 8. I have a page that is completely drawn here, and I already have it all lettered. I did not bother masking out the word balloons because it's not anything spoilery if you're up to date on the comic. I mean, if you're super not up to date, then I guess it's kind of spoilery, but in that case, watch at your own risk. All right, so I'm going to start by doing some of the stuff with my tools. So I'm going to do a little bit with the straight edge here, my triangle. Get some of these straight lines plopped down first off. Oh, darn it. That was poor planning on my part. You have to be careful about how you plan these so that you're not dragging your tools through wet ink, is the idea. What is that? Is that? No, it's an eraser crumb. Okay, good. It's about to panic that I just started and I already messed up. Alan! Hey, Alan. Thanks for coming and hanging out. And I don't want to do super solid all the way through lines for these because I don't want the pavers in this garden to be like a distracting, super harsh checkerboard. So I'm using the straight edge to make sure that they stay lined up and true to the perspective grid, but I'm not making a solid line so that they're still not like popping forward visually and being like, hey, look at me, instead of looking at, like the characters that are doing things. Slightly more important than the stones on the ground. And this little crowd is blocking a lot of them. Even a small crowd is like really exhausting to draw. I drew this group I was like, it needs to look like there are some people there, but I don't want it to be a lot of people. And even this was too many people. I was already like, so tired after drawing just this small group. Oh, missed that one entirely. That's all right. Did I mess this pattern up somewhere? I might have. I might have, in fact, messed that up. Oh, yeah, I see where I made the mistake. Whoops. That's okay. Come on. I know there's ink in there. All the way across. There we go. All right, so after doing a pass all in one direction, I'm going to pick up my triangle and I'm going to wipe all the wet ink off the edge so that I do not make a mess. I'm also going to clean off my nib. Got a little jar of water here that is very specifically not the size or shape of a jar that you would drink anything out of, so that I do not accidentally drink my inky water. It's, if you would like to see, carefully lift this over here. It's like I think it was like a green olive jar, like one of the little green olive jars, approximately 1 million years ago before it got turned into a ink water jar. Because We have all foolishly decided to clean off our brushes and tools and something that is far too similar to a drinking vessel and then drink in our nasty, inky paint water. And that is not an experience I wish to repeat ever again. All right, I'm going to put that aside for a minute. I'm going to do a little bit of freehand because I get bored using the tools the whole time. Where can you buy Age of Night in print? So there's a few different places you can buy Age of Night in print. My personal preference is if you buy from my friendly folks at my local bookstore, because they have signed copies and they're awesome. And that's called the Briar Patch in Bangor, Maine. They have it on their website. I don't know if they have all 3 volumes on their website, but they can easily get all 3 volumes from me because I live nearby. So you check out their website and they can sell you signed copies. You can also buy them on, the place, the one that Lex Luthor owns. It starts with an A, named after a river in South America. That place, you can buy them there too. I make approximately the same amount of money if you buy from either place, so consider that. You can also buy it in PDF, also from the Evil Empire, or from Skirmisher Publishing's website, which is just skirmisher.com. They have a very high quality PDF copy of it that was on sale for Cyber Monday. I think it's still on sale. I'm not sure if their Cyber Monday sale is still going on. So those are your options. And it's my comic. It updates every Wednesday online. You get another page. The print versions and PDF versions have bonus material that you do not find anywhere online, which is cool. So that's a nice little perk aside from just supporting me. But most of the comic you can read for free at ageofnight.com. And you can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/ageofnight. And that way you get comic pages a week early, and you get free comics, and you get my admiration and deep gratitude for helping to support me. So I'm doing the Scumbling. I hope that Douglas shows up and watches the Scumbling. Yeah, bonus material. So like the actual PDF and print copies, the actual like books, not just the comic pages online, but the actual books, in whichever form you get them, they each have a bonus short story chapter, like a little extra chapter of like something that's not like necessarily super plot relevant, but it's like a cute little filler scene that's kind of more like character development and the characters doing fun and goofy stuff. So there's one of those in each volume. There's like a bunch of development sketches of like all the concept work that goes into this. And there's usually like some backstory for one of the characters and like a little bit of like world building stuff talking about like the theology of the world and that sort of thing. So it's a lot of fun. You get a lot of extra stuff if you get the actual books. I am trying to convincingly render this tree with my little scumbly strokes here. I feel like I haven't done much of this type of foliage rendering for a while. All of the last chapter took place in the temple here, where this is taking place, but it was also all at night. So like anytime there was like a bush or a tree in the background, it was mostly a giant blob of shadow with like a little ragged edge to indicate that there are leaves there. I somehow survived chapter 23. I'm not sure how. It was the longest chapter I've done so far. Came in at a whopping 35 pages, and it was almost all action, which is a lot of work. Tree is slowly starting to look like this little scene, this little area, this area that this scene is taking place in. It's part of the High Temple where all of the last chapter took place, but we haven't actually been in this part of it, this little garden, since chapter 19, I think. Over here, there's a bench over there. Okay. It's getting decidedly more tree-like. Build that shadow up a little bit in this lower edge here. There's that little kind of lower shadowed section. I'm almost done with the foliage part of this tree. Then we've got a little bit of moss hanging down here, but this tree is mostly there. Then we can move on and do some other stuff for a bit. So that I'm not just scumbling foliage for a solid hour. Last little space here, and then I kind of gotta lean back. I mean, face is always really close to this stuff when I'm working on it, and I kind of need to lean back and make sure that the actual like form, the value is actually informing me how it's supposed of the form instead of just being like a bunch of weird splotches. And this seems to be working pretty well. Where with darkness on the lower edge here, we've got a little bit of rounded shape where there's like a big branch sticking forward in a couple of places. So that's actually working. It's really easy when you're working on this sort of thing with these tiny little strokes and your face is like this close to the paper and it all just kind of turns into a mess and you kind of have to step back and do the arm's length thing, which actually the screen is incredibly helpful for that because one of my friends explained this to me that RGB light actually like enhances contrast for some reason, like between black and white. I don't understand it, but it seems to be true from what I'm observed. So it actually makes it a little easier to see how well those forms are working. All right, we're going to come down here and do a little bit more of this fun straight edge stuff. Because, yes, I have more of it to do in that top panel, but I do not want to drag my triangle through the wet foliage that I just inked. So we're going to come down here for a minute and do it down here. A lot of planning with media that takes a while to dry. This ink dries pretty fast, but still takes just long enough that it's easy to accidentally drag your hand through it or drag your triangle through it or whatever else. Whoops, I'm going out of frame. Hold on, let's scoot. Scoot up to where you can see what I'm doing. And that one will be it for that pass. Okay. Oh, that ink is all at the bottom of the page, and I have to make sure not to lean on it. Clean off my triangle. Clean off my nib. It had some kind of gunk going on there. Despite all appearances, I do clean this thing constantly while I'm working with it. It's just that if it gets like under my finger and then just gets smush in there before I get a chance to clean it, it ends up looking like this. All right, I'm gonna come up here and work on this little detail of when running into the garden. I will need to do a couple little straight edge bits there. I'm gonna do that real quick because at this point this tree is pretty much dry. There's a couple spots where it's a little bit damp right in the thick of that, so I'm just gonna avoid that. Bring this up here and do this doorway. There we go. Okay. Still remember to clean my triangle. And come down here and do this. Start getting some of these little details. This little like brick detailing around the entryway to this garden. Little bits of grass growing up. All right, where are we at? We're about not quite 20 minutes in. So I do these streams once a week, live art streams where I'm working on something. A lot of times it's an Age of Night page. Sometimes it's some freelance work or it's just whatever, but once a week I come to you live and let you hang out and listen to me ramble while I draw, and I answer questions if people have questions. Even if it's the same question I've answered 100 times, I'll answer it again because I like to share information with people. So if that sounds like something you want to check out and want to see regularly, then you should subscribe to the channel like you do, so you know when that's happening. Generally right now it's Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. That's, subject to change depending on what sort of craziness goes on in all our lives. But for right now, it is Tuesdays at 8 o'clock. That's a short enough line. I'm just going to do that freehand. All right. So back here, there's some trees like through this doorway, but I don't really want them to be all that detailed. I don't really want them to be brought forward. So we're just going to make them kind of like a suggestion with this tone back here, which looks a little goofy when the rest of the image is not done yet, but should help to make it look like there are plants back there without really cluttering it up with too much detail. And we're gonna get Wen's figure in here. Sorry, there's my head. There's my goofy head coming into frame as I get my face right up here to see what I'm doing. Right. Trying to make sure that as I render this in ink that I don't lose some of this nice flowy action movement that I got in the drawing here. It's always a danger in going over stuff with ink that you're going to kind of zap the life out of it, so to speak. That seems to be working okay. This little shadow under her. All right, so that's that little detail up in the corner there. I'm gonna come back over to my tree because now, see, I just worked up here. This is wet up in here, but now if I come down here and work on this tree, my hand is resting in this area where there is no wet ink. A big part of trying to pursue efficiency in this type of wet medium is planning. So like if you know that a certain part of it is going to have to be left alone to dry, like planning in such a way that you can keep working on something else while that is drying rather than just having to sit around and twiddle your thumbs and wait. Which, you know, isn't always going to work. Like if it's a big watercolor piece or something and you have a whole bunch of stuff that needs to dry, like get all wet all at once and dry all at once. And sometimes you're still going to end up waiting, but as much as possible, trying to plan your approach so that you can keep working and keep moving forward and not get too slowed down by that. All right, that's going to be black. So I mark that with a little X so that when I come back in here with a brush, I can see that and go, oh yeah, that's supposed to be a Spock. Same thing over here. Start working on this bark. There we go. All right, so then other than coming back in and filling in those spot blacks on the tree is all done, which is nice. One thing checked off. All right, I'm gonna come back down here, and I actually think I'm gonna work on this barrel for a little bit here. So I need one of my French curves. I'm not even sure if this is the French curve I need, but we'll find out. I'm gonna start with the banding on the barrel. Yeah, because otherwise I'm going to keep running into it and be like really frustrated about that. So trying to find a spot on the French curve that matches the curves that I am trying to ink. And so I can't get the whole curve in one go. I'll have to do another pass to get the other side of this. But that's okay. It usually takes a few passes to get everything. There's my nose. Sorry, that's probably not what you want to be seeing. Is my nose. All right, that's part of that, a very small part of that very big curve. It's going to take a few passes to get all of that curve in. That's a start anyway. What is on my triangle? There's like, I think that's gouache. Got some kind of gunk on my triangle. All right. I'm going to come up here and get this other set of straight lines up on this first panel. These ones are just all the way across. I don't have to try to stagger them and mess up my pattern like I did before. Just have to make sure I don't cut any people in half with them. Same thing as before, though. I don't really want it to be a solid line the whole way, just because that gets kind of distracting. It's not really what I want. There we go. Okay. Cleaning. And cleaning. And all right. So that's good. I've got all the straight lines on that first panel. I'm still going to have to come in and do the French curve on the barrel, but I can keep working on some other stuff while I just dry a little bit. We're going to get this little stone bench in here. Give it a little bit of... Is there a hair on my nib? I think there was. I think it fell off. I think that's it. Lying on the board right now. I think it's on there. I don't think the camera's picking it up, but I can see it. All right. This cute little stone bench. There's the little stone bench, little shed. over the stone bench. Trying to keep my lines nice and parallel to each other, and also in line with the rest of my perspective grid so that these shadows are not like skewing or flattening out my perspective. Because we do not want that. I'm gonna work on some more shrubbery over here. I've got grass. I have this little shrubby guy here. I don't want to go too heavy-handed because this is a daytime scene, so we don't want the shadows to be too heavy. Also, the bottom edge of this little conifer here is going to be dark, and I don't want it to just blend in with this shrub, so I'm going to keep that shrub pretty light over there. Start outlining this tree. And I want to keep that line a little bit broken too, not like a solid outline, because again, that just makes it look a little bit flat and not very, and it just kind of breaks the illusion, especially on something like a tree or a shrub where it's like, the edges are all jagged and uneven and going in a bunch of different directions because they're leaves or needles in the case of this little piney tree thing here. We'll have that lower edge of the foliage be kind of dark. It's going to be a lot lighter from then on. This little fringe here will be kind of like a dark edge where it's for hanging. More a little scumbly technique here. What? Did I get no ink when I dipped back in there? Come on. What happened there? Get the form of this little piney tree. Well, the foliage part of it anyway. Gonna give that a little bit of a texture down on its trunk. All right. All right. And then there's a shadow underneath it on the ground. Again, trying to follow that perspective grid, keep everything in perspective. Just a very small shadow under these shrubs. There we go. And we'll give the shrubs a little bit of life here. So this is going to be one of those streams, I can tell by looking at the time, that it's not going to look like I made a ton of progress. because this type of texture work is just, it's kind of labor intensive. It takes a while. There's one shrub. Here comes the other shrub. Little shrubs don't take too long anyway. There we go. All right. A couple of shrubs. I'm going to come back down here and do a little bit more with my French curve while the stuff that's up at the top there dries for a bit. Let's see what else we can manage to get of this barrel. Find a good spot to match that curve. That will get me some of it. So it's very much like an art and a feel thing, getting the French curves. You basically just have to move the curve around until you find where it matches the curve that you're trying to make on the paper. And sometimes you'll get a good long stretch of the curve, and sometimes you'll just get a little bit of it. And that's just kind of how it does. You have to do a little section of it and then move your curve so that you match the next section, and so on and so forth until you have the whole thing inked. And you just try to make the transitions between the different sections that you do as seamless as possible. So like if I come over here, let's see if I can do this without dragging through the wet ink. If I come over here and I want to do like this section, let's see. I want to do this section in here. I want to make sure that I'm actually lining up part of this curve that I am matching on the tool with the part I already have inked, so that when I get this section here where it lines up, it goes seamlessly into what I've already inked, rather than there being like a jagged line where they don't quite meet up. So you don't want to butt them up against each other. You want to overlap them. Anytime I use a French curve on here, I will explain the absolute heck out of it, because the entire time I was in art school, I had professor after professor telling me, you have to use a French curve if you're drawing curves. And then when we would ask, okay, but how do you use a French curve? They would say, what? You should know that already. And then never actually demonstrate it for us. And it was incredibly frustrating. I had to find out on my own how to use a French curve, because despite the fact that every professor thought we should know, none of them showed us. I refused to perpetuate that nonsense. So I will tell you how to use a French curve. I'll give you hints and tips on using a French curve all day long. Because that sort of thing drives me nuts. All right. This line on the outside of the barrel here, I'm doing pretty bold compared to the lines on the inside to help make it pop as an object existing in that space, whereas the other lines are internal. They're not separate objects, so they're a little bit finer. Okay, I'll let that dry. Come back up here. What do we got going on here? I think I'm going to give foliage a rest. gonna rest on the foliage. We're at 41-ish minutes. So I've got a little less than 20 minutes left. I like these streams to last for approximately an hour. I'm gonna start inking some figures in here. That's fun. I like these streams to last for approximately an hour because at the end of an hour, I should get up and stretch. You should get up and stretch. We should all go get something to drink. Stay hydrated and limber. It's not good for anybody to just sit at their drafting table or in front of their computer device or whatever for hours on end. Granted, I will sit right back down after a short break and I will continue working for a good portion of the evening, but it's important to get up and stretch and hydrate. This has been your comic mom reminding you to take care of yourself. So these little tiny figures, it's like, not only are they tiny, and so I can't get a lot of detail on them, I also don't want to get too much detail on them and have them get difficult to read. You want to kind of, when you have a very small figure in like a wide shot like this, you do kind of want to simplify them a little bit. Just so that they read better as the figure that they're supposed to be. It's like if I include every little tiny detail on any of these people, they just kind of turn into a person-shaped blob with a lot of scribbles on them. I think her boots are supposed to be black. We're going to make those dark. I feel like her boots are black. I could be wrong, but if so, they're black now. It's my comic. I do what I want. I'm going to move this down here so my big fat head is not on camera quite as much. Working on this little figure here. All right. The other thing is I don't want to do a lot of rendering on them either. I want to keep it pretty minimal to just like still define their shape, make them look like they exist in 3 dimensions. I'm not going to get super into detailed rendering like I did like on some of these trees and stuff, because I want them to be readable. I just want it to be like, yep, that's a person standing there, and I can tell this person from that person, but not get all bogged down in making a bunch of details and just turning them into little scribbly masses. Try to keep it clear. Clarity is the ultimate goal here. So, like, I'm not even putting mouths on most of these people because, like, it's fine. You can tell they have a face. See their eyes and their nose. Their face is too little to be having much more than their little neutral expression anyway. So, it's fine. she's wearing like a fur capelet, so I'm going to put just a little bit of texture on that capelet so that you can tell it's fur. And really, I'm not drawing fingers, not getting into too much detail here at all. Really simplified shapes. I'm going to spin my paper around to get my hand at an angle that it wants to do this. Just a little bit of rendering to help keep it looking three-dimensional. There's another figure down. Gonna do this guy over here. Just a little bit of his muscles. As you can see, he's got some muscles. And again, wearing some little like fur accents here, so give those just a tiniest bit of texture so they read as fur. I'm gonna do a little bit darker under his arm there. And it's pretty good for that guy. All right. Let's see, what time is it? We are at about 49 minutes, so I will start doing the thing. I did this a little bit earlier because Alan asked, but I will do it again because it is the time for doing the thing. So at this point, I will remind you all that I'm Amanda Call. I am inking my webcomic, which is Age of Night. It's a fantasy comic that updates every Wednesday, and you can find it for free at ageofnight.com. That's ageofnight.com. If you want to get your comic pages a week early and help support me in my arting efforts, then you can support me on Patreon, which is patreon.com/ageofnight, spelled the same as the comic. You get all the comic pages a week early, you get free comics, you get all sorts of cool stuff. And if you just like the live streams of me working on artwork, then you can subscribe to this channel here on YouTube. Subscribe and hit the bell thingy so that you know when I'm going live. As of right now, I do these streams about once a week, and that's every Tuesday at 8. The time slot is subject to change, but I try to keep it as consistent as possible. So if it does change, I will try to let you know, and definitely the subscribing and notifications thingy will help with that. If in fact it does have to change because my life goes crazy or whatever. Oh, yay, I get to ink Kamaria while I finish talking. This little figure back here is Kamaria. Hopefully you can tell once I have her inked. or else I'm not doing my job very well. So you can also follow me on the social medias. You can follow me on Twitter at Age of Night. You can follow at Amanda Call Art. That's just my name with the word art after it. All is one handle. One more in the handle. That's what I meant. You know what I meant. You've got the crazy wavy black hair everywhere. That's how you know it's Kamaria. Let's see, what else? Yes, it's the holiday season, and you can buy my book. You can buy PDF copies of it at skirmisher.com. They're really nice, high-quality PDFs. You can buy physical copies at my friendly local bookstore at the Briar Patch. They have their own website. You can order stuff from them on there. I think they only have volume 1 listed on their website right now, but they have all 3 of them. You just might need to call them or whatever. Those ones you can get are signed. You can, of course, also buy PDFs and physical copies of my book from the Evil Empire, where you buy all your things. You know the one I'm talking about. But maybe consider the other options first, since they're small businesses that I would like to help keep alive in any way that I can. And I still get a good cut of the sales either way. Things to consider. And what else? I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I think that's it. Maybe I'm forgetting something. More of that fur texture. I think I have a pretty good dent in this small crowd of people, but even a small crowd of people, literally anytime there's more than 3 figures, it's like, this is too much. This is too many people. I didn't want it to be a big crowd, but I definitely wanted it to look like a gathering, so it ends up being a few people. I would be telling you about conventions that are coming up, but obviously there are none of those anytime soon. Just me babbling into the void on YouTube whilst I draw. There we go. We're getting right down toward the end of our time here. I will not quite finish this crowd scene, I don't think, but I'm going to be awful close. It's a very small crowd, but still. It feels like a crowd scene. There's a lot to do here. And this is a seam. The now chieftain of the people of the Black King, whose outfit is so much fun to draw. Greatly enjoyed in the last chapter getting to do the panel where he's crouched over in the dark scaring people. It was so much fun. The whole point of his regalia is that it's supposed to look like he's an incarnation of Kiara's the god of night, who's this scary cat beast thing. So he's got the cat headdress and like wears like the fur cape, a fur capelet, and like fur, like, what do you call it when they're on your legs? Like fur cuff type things on his legs and that sort of thing. It was fun. It's like, oh yeah, that makes him actually look like some kind of cat beast demon thing. The void appreciates it. I'm glad the void appreciates my rambling. There's those fur leg cuff things, like leg warmers is almost what they're like. I feel like there's a more technical term for them, but I can't think of it. Ask the anime kids. They should know. They wear them like at raves and stuff, right? Like neon fur ones. I don't know. All right, so that's going to take us to the end of our time for today. So I started with this page fully penciled and my lettering done, and I have gotten a lot of the tool inking stuff for my straight edge and my French curve done in the background, and a good amount of rendering on this first big panel that's looks like it's going to be pretty much all pen and ink work. So made pretty good progress on this evening. So thank you everybody for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye.